Um, we have Ken H, who has come along from America to share his story with us tonight for about 30 minutes. And then afterwards we will raise our hands and share back with Ken. So I'd like to invite Ken in to unmute and yeah, open up the floor to you. It's all yours, buddy.
Hi, thank you. It's an honor, and it's an honor to be clean and sober. I'll try to go quick. I didn't want to get into recovery, but I got to honor the fact that it's CA and tell a little bit how I got here. I was kind of a hard worker. In Alaska, we had a logging family, and the first thing I remember, my father had gotten killed, and my mother was mad, and she didn't like God or men or anything, and so she took it out on me. And I'm going to skip a lot of it. You can ask me about this later, but she created the shame in me and convinced me that I was evil and bad. And I remember as a child, I went to the neighbors and said, "What's the hell in it? It's going to hell." So I bought that, and so I was a scapegoat. I raised hell, and I always did. Around 14, I found some alcohol down at the river, and I liked it because I'm being a bad kid, and I'm supposed to anyway. And it was kind of cool, and I liked it. And I really didn't do a lot of it. Around 16-ish, I hung out with some guys that were kind of criminals, actually, and I hooked up with them because I figured that's what kids are supposed to do. And the older ones could buy booze, and I liked it, and I got drunk a lot, and I really enjoyed it. And fortunately, God stepped in early and got caught, had a lot of money. So we kind of like in the old days, you could kind of pay your way out of trouble. So I really didn't get in trouble, but I was out of what they call parental control. And kind of one of the first blessings I ever got is I had to go to counseling because they saying anybody that's getting away with that and is making that kind of money is pretty evil. And I don't know about being evil, but I was doing just trying to fit in. And I had that emptiness inside of me. In the meantime, nobody ever mentioned my drinking. I have the ability to drink quite a bit and not necessarily look drunk. But I got what's called cash register honesty, and it's paid off really well. I realized that what I was doing was really wrong and I was hurting more people. So I kind of got that internal motivation. But if you talk about drugs and alcohol, I never got real honest with the law. So anyway, I drank and partied and hung out, and I hung out with guys. And to be cool, you built hot rods and had Harley Davidsons and everything that was cool, hip slick and cool. We're talking the 60s, American graffiti, and I was pretty good at building that kind of stuff. And I progressed, and around age 22, a friend of mine that I looked up to a lot came by and he gave me this little bindle and he says, "Why don't you try this?" And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "That's cocaine." I said, "Well, that's not heroin, is it?" He said, "No," and I'm kind of afraid of that. And he says, "It won't hurt you." So I did a little bit of it, nothing happened. But my girlfriend at the time thought it was pretty cool. I was paranoid of pot and everything. And anyway, as it went on, I kind of, somebody said, "How'd it go?" I said, "Well, nothing to get excited about. I'd rather drink, but I felt good." Well, the basis of the story is I bought in a house at a young age, and I had Harley Davidson and boats and all kinds of stuff. And I kind of ran into a time where I sold all of it at once. And somebody said to me or says, "Are you going to party or are you going to go back to work?" And I go, "Oh, no, I'm going to invest it." Well, I decided cocaine would be a good idea. Might as well party. And about 6 weeks later, and none of this was on loans, this was cash money. All of a sudden, I'm like going, "Man, I'm broke." Somebody said, "What happened?" And I said, "I really don't know. Seems like I had a lot of fun and there's a lot of girls around and we were partying, but all the money's gone. And I think that cocaine's bad." It didn't put together that I had a problem. So anyway, I continued to party and drink and go on and on. And I lived in the Bay Area where all the rock and roll was. And I had long hair and a hip slick and cool or whatever that was. And I didn't feel that way deep down inside. My insecurity and my self-esteem was real low, but I had the neat stuff. I had the cool bikes and the cool cars. And anyway, I had a really neat girlfriend that liked me. And she used to go to all the concerts. She was popular. She was kind of like a roadie girl. She was kind of like a pit girl at the races. She was really good looking and they liked her because she was just there. And she'd go there and she goes, "Can you get me some cocaine?" I says, "No, I can't get you any cocaine. I'm pretty sure that stuff's bad. I went through that." And she said, No, no, it's not for me. These rock and roll stars, I like to do a little bit of it. And when they give me some, they kind of expect more. And you're my old man. And I go, oh, you mean, yeah, she said, I'd like to have my own. So the next thing I know, I get on the phone and I call up my buddies and I get fronted. She goes, what's all that about? And I said, well, there's no sense in paying for it. I had no idea. I never thought I was a dealer until I got sober, but that's kind of what I was doing. And I partied hard and, she came and went and I really got into it. And I ended up getting married and I'm trying to get to the recovery part here. Oh, I'm doing good. So, what happened? I didn't get married yet, but I'm partying with all my guys, and I really would rather ride my bike and go from bar to bar. So I didn't go to the concerts, but sometime I would because they'd be pretty cool, Rolling Stones or Frampton or one of those guys. It's cool to go hang out. But in the meantime, I'm kind of got a lot of cocaine in my life, but I'm still the alcohol's the number one thing. Well, alcohol got the best of me, and my buddies that thought a lot of me and I thought a lot of them too. They were important to me. Said, Ken, you got to quit drinking. You got a big mouth and you're a jerk when you drink and you talk too much and you're going to get everybody in trouble. And so I actually was drinking so much that I didn't realize I was getting drunk on the first drink. And so I said, you mind if I have one drink with you guys and I won't drink anymore during the night? Well, on one drink, I got blotto and they warned me that was the end of the game. And so I kind of detoxed and I stayed dry. And I didn't do any cocaine for about 2 years because I didn't think I could do drugs without drinking. But it was obvious when I drank, I was a jerk. So I kind of didn't get clean and sober, but I wasn't using anything. And then I got married to just the neatest thing in the world. I married a gold digger barracuda that ate me alive. And I had enough money to retire when I was probably 32. And she was real good at changing that. And I kept looking at her and I was going, and I started doing cocaine. I wouldn't drink, but I could do cocaine when I discovered I didn't have to drink and I could do cocaine. So I did. So sanity was probably gone. And I decided there was something wrong with her. So I started going to AA meetings. And I used to feel sorry for the people in AA because they didn't know about cocaine. I used to take cocaine, I'd put it in a little snuff bindle and I'd mix a little bit of brown in it. And I'd sit in a meeting feeling really pretty cool, doing a little bump. People would say, can I have some of your nicotine? I go, no, I wouldn't share it. And bottom line to it was one of the guys that was my first sponsor said, it's about being sober. It's not about drugs. And he said, I've heard that you can probably get me good dope. And I go, and yeah, or cocaine. And I said, yeah, I can. And wow, it's really great. You're being a buddy and everything. So let me know. I'll put you together. And so he called me up in the morning of April 4, 1985, and he said, can you go ahead and get me some? So at about 7:30 in the morning on the freeway, I went to a person and bought a large quantity for this guy. And he closes the safe and he says, well, let's do a little bit. And I says, oh no, I'm not. I'm helping this guy out that's helping me in AA and I can't do any of it. And he says, oh gosh, a guy shouldn't do this and not get something out of it. So he cuts off a big old line and does it. And I'm like 10 minutes away from my regular job. And I'm going, well, he's right. I should. This guy's not going to get upset. And it's all solid. I really can't even snort it or anything, but I chip a little off and I'm putting it on and wet. And then I got to work and I thought, well, this stuff's pure. I can probably cut it and that ain't going to hurt anything. Bottom line is and I usually went to a meeting at 8 p.m. The guy calls me at 4 p.m. and he says, how'd we do? Do we need to get together? And I go, couldn't get any. Well, I did a tremendous amount dollar wise, and I'm in a divorce money wise, and it wasn't good. And I missed my regular meeting and I freaked out and I went to like the parking lot and this guy that was cool, I said, I think I got a drug problem. And he goes, I don't know anything about drugs, but that guy does. So I went and told the guy what was going on. He says, come on, I'll take you to a NA meeting tomorrow. And we went and I didn't use the hypodermic, but the story was perfect. The guy that was strung out or whatever was addicted to cocaine told my story, everything, the losses, the wins, everything. But he used a needle, and I didn't use a needle, but I could connect the dots. And I said, "It's me." The reason I've kind of go into this part at that point, when I realized that I had to quit, the obsession came over me. So I went to my AA sponsor. And I says, man, I don't know. I've never had a craving like this. I probably did. I just didn't know it. And I says, what do I do? And he says, well, you've been kind of reading the book, trying to do the steps. Whatever you're reading, probably double it or triple it. And if you're going to one meeting a day, you should go to two. If you're going to two, you should probably go to four. Well, I started going to three meetings a day and I started reading the book. And the other part of it is I didn't go anywhere I could score. I couldn't drive down certain streets. I wouldn't go into a 7-Eleven or a quick stop. I would pay somebody else to go get the cigarettes. And I don't think it lasted that long, but it took maybe 5 or 6 weeks to where the obsession probably submitted. It's the part of the first step. I have a craving. When you put it in me, I can't stop. I'm going to run until I'm broke or out of money or asleep or passed out. So anyway, I'd say I'd qualified there on that one. So good enough. So I got involved in the program. And part of what happened is I knew that I hung around some kind of colorful, violent people. I rode motorcycles, and I'm thinking I'm supposed to be a tough guy. Try to probably look like one, but I realized the guys that didn't say sober and watching it were really angry and they were mad. And I was really worried about that. And so I realized in reading it that they weren't working those steps and it was about love and tolerance. And so I got involved. The fourth step really wasn't frightening for me. I could write that down. The thing that scared me was my fifth step. And so I took longer than anybody needs to. I've sponsored many men that got it done much faster than that. But I would write, I would every day I'd take a half hour out and I'd write in this journal. And it was so big when I finally found a priest to listen to it, he kind of held back the laugh. He's going, well, yeah, you didn't have to repeat everything day by day, you know. And the fifth step really did set me free. And so, in all reality, I was busy doing what it was, and I was going to a meeting every day. I went through a very expensive, horrific divorce, and I realized I couldn't be mad, even though it felt like they were stealing from me. The resentment was bad. I was afraid to have a family because of the abuse that I'd gone through. I'd loved to have had a family, but I knew that people that when they run into that fear or that panic or whatever it is, they revert to the thing. And I said, I don't want to terrify anybody I love that much. And because of the program, that hasn't been true. I finally got to the part where I needed to be. So I went to lots of meetings. I had some girlfriends. It was nice because once you did a fifth step and it's you turn it over to your higher power and you change spiritually. If you told the truth, it was okay to have girlfriends, legitimate. And so I kind of had fun. I was single for a while, and this really neat newcomer came in, and I saw her right away. And I said, "Yep, no way. I'm not going to date a girl early on in her recovery because that could kill her. I'm not going to even tell her that I'm attracted to her until she gets a year." Well, in the meantime, she's dating people, but around year five, I finally got a date with her, and I got married. And it was a really neat marriage. It really was. We really got along good and everything's good. And I'm doing what we need to do. I'm going to meetings. I'm going to, let me back up. When I realized I had a problem with cocaine and drugs, what it was is in a particular town I was in, the NA meetings were a little bit dysfunctional, and the AA meetings that I was going to were pretty good. They were really working the steps. And somebody said 30 miles away from here, they got really good NA and CA. And so I did that. And so I went to 4 Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and the rest of the week, if not four on, I'd go to AA. And so I was doing both. I was doing all that stuff. Well, anyway, turned out to be a pretty nice guy, and I married a really nice girl, and we were married for probably 5 years, but we didn't have any children. And when she broke up, I thought she just needed to probably date or something. So I sat back, and I got to be honest, I was walking around like a sick cow for a while. And as it turns out, she actually married a really nice guy, but it wasn't right away. So the point of that is I felt like something had come up, and I was broken. And on some level, I killed my own clock here. Let me go back. Oh, I'm good. So what it was is life was okay. I went on. It didn't all fit together. Life was good. I'll share another thing. I got some really incredibly good jobs that I remember saying to the people that gave me the job. I said, how did I ever get that clearance? We're talking about mega dollars. And they said, oh, I've heard your story. You're an alcoholic and an addict, but you're not a criminal. So it's easy to recommend you. And I said, if anybody did security clearance on me, I'd be out. And they go, yeah, well, they're never going to because I gave them my thing. And so I had these really great job, and that's where the cash register honesty and who you know worked out. So anyway, as it turns out, I uh, Amy decided, my second wife decided that since we weren't having children, she wanted to move on, and so she did, and it was okay. We only fought like once, so we were kind of with recovery. We were a pretty nice couple. It was mind blowing that it didn't go anywhere else, but I'm going somewhere that's really a bonus part of my story. And so anyway, I got in another relationship with a really neat girl, and we would kind of do real estate and stuff like that. But we kind of like have this little back and forth that I didn't understand what was going on. And it really didn't work out. And I knew she was a bad deal in a way. And she was kind of a girl that self-esteem needed a boost. And so, real good looking. So when I wasn't feeling it, apparently, well, to give you an idea, she broke up with me in February and didn't tell me till August, but when I got the news, I went, that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. But I was still wounded. I really didn't feel good. And I had a lot of stuff going on, but I still didn't have it. And a friend of mine, and I was really down on therapy, said, hey, I know this therapy group you might want to check out. And so I went and did it. And it was kind of like a hypnotist thing. And all of a sudden, I don't know, it was probably a sixth or seventh session. I kind of went, wow, that was terrible. I saw this little blonde kid and he was running for all his life, and I wanted to go help him, but I couldn't. And there was two of them. It was kind of experimental, and they looked at each other and they said, you don't need to come back. The point is, I got that little inner child was me, and the shame and the guilt that told me I needed to do that, and the lack of self-esteem came from that. So the upside to it, I'm in the Happy Joyous and Free. I still go to a lot of meetings. I still sponsor. I'm busy all the time. But what happened is I was afraid I was going to be that father that if bad things happen, I would scream and holler and be that violent guy that really hadn't showed up for a long time. Anyway, it's been 21 years with the wife. I have a 20-year-old and a 28-year-old that I adopted. My 28-year-old today came in and hugged me just to hug me. He says, man, Dad, I just appreciate you. My youngest hasn't hugged me today, but he does. Uh, Once in a while, my ego needs it, and I go, "Am I a good dad? Oh no, you're good. Am I? Do I lie or you trust me? No, you're good. We trust you. You're good." Bottom line to it is probably they're going to go through the same thing we go through, and I tell them you're probably going to be an addict or an alcoholic because we're related. So no, I'm not going to use, we've heard your story, everybody have told it. I said, well, when I had that drink and I had that drug, everything was okay. And it's kind of like at that point, the first half of the first step kicks in. And when you have a drink, there's a good chance it's going to feel so good, you're going to think everything's okay. And at that point, it'll work for a while and then it'll quit working. And when it quits working, we'll be here for you. I'm hoping they don't have to experience what I went through, the craziness. I've skipped a lot of the pain and suffering. I'm sure if you've got an addiction, you know what it's like. You run out of money. You got people collecting from you. You're thinking you should do something different. You're embarrassed. You run out to the car to see who you ran over. That's insanity. What kind of normal person goes into a blackout and gets enough drugs to kind of put that blackout off later? I remember one time I was partying so hard, the bar liked me well enough to where they put me to bed back in the storeroom, and I got up and I said, man, that was a hell of a party. I got to be at work at 1 o'clock and it's like 11:30. And the owner said, what day? And I go, well, Monday. And he goes, well, you're in trouble because it's Tuesday. But anyway, I'm sure you guys can probably a little bit relate to that. The important part is, and I skipped it, the program works. Rarely have we seen it fail. That's a kind way of seeing it. I've never seen anybody that was constitutionally capable of telling the truth, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Sometimes we have to detox for 5 or 6 months or a year even. But if we do this, we get a kind of relief and a life better than anything I dreamt of. Honestly, when I was kidding the other day, I'm really lucky. I skipped a lot of, you can add it all up. It was kind of a colorful, would have made a great movie. But the truth of the matter, for me to be alive is a miracle. To not be in prison is an even bigger miracle. And to have a loving family and to be sober and to be an old man, having a higher power in my life to, when bad, we got babies, when bad things happen, I can go there. I turn it over to the higher power. Doesn't matter. Everybody's got a different one. I've sponsored guys like me that didn't want anything to do with the higher power. And the important part was just know you're not. And over time and watching and prayer and meditation, my higher power has gotten a lot more familiar that most people identify with, but I still don't talk about it a lot, even though you can guess I've got one, because I wouldn't want anybody else to miss out on the beauty of this program, thinking you had to have some kind of certain religion. It's not religious, it's just a shift. Probably the biggest thing that happened to me is had done it. I faked it. I prayed and got on my knees in the sixth and seventh and figured, why not? That's what they're doing. Is that what we do? Okay, we'll pray and we do that. I didn't buy it because God hated me. My mom told me so, and I believed it deep down inside. But I was doing a seventh step with a guy, and he was sincere, and I heard him. And it dawned on me, why don't I let go of being whatever I think I'm supposed to be? Why don't I go ahead and just try to be a really nice guy? What's the worst thing that's going to happen if I was? And that was that shift when it really shifted for me. Wasn't a burning bush, but I really changed at that point. And I've never shared a lot of my story, even though I do now. I don't have any secrets. I didn't share a lot of my story until probably Zoom came out, and I still have to skip a lot of it. A lot of the people that I used to run around are still alive. So it's not important. What's important is this program works. And if you don't believe me, just come hang out. The life is better than anything I ever dreamt of. So thank you. I managed to get that done in less than 30 minutes. So let's hear from everybody. And if you're hurting, that's when you call up and you call. I got to tell you what, I got a really neat job working. Like I said, I got a great job. If you call me, I'll answer the phone. And if I don't answer the phone, I'll call you back. And if I'm driving in the car where a cop will give me a ticket, I'll say, let me call you back. If you tell me you're about to get in a gunfight or shoot somebody, I'm going to pull over. But other than that, I got time. You know what I mean? It's a gift. Now, if my kids, I kind of fib to my kids a little bit. I let them think they're number one because why not? I tell them the family's number one, but it's really not. This recovery and the higher power is number one. So thank you. I'll shut up now. Thank you.